wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's hot. It is very hot. I've been running errands and I got my haircut and
I
I
was
am
just
on
going to
fire.
say you're all clean shaven. This is my favorite look. You know, moms are very specific about what we like with our kids. I try
Yeah.
not to say it out loud all the time, but sometimes I do. I love this. You look so cute. You look like my little boy.
It's the only reason I ever don't look like this is purely out of laziness. I don't it's because I have to shave probably every like 3 days because I don't grow real facial hair. I grow man-child facial hair where it's patchy and pointy and it comes up here. It's just the most annoying thing ever. But and then with my hair, I just hate I was talking about this with Doc last night. It's like you have to have a subscription for your hair. Like once a month, you got to go pay so that you can look normal. I'm like, well, I want to know how to cut my own hair.
I think that's hard because you can't reach the back. Like I do think women, like I cut my own hair quite a bit. In fact, today I was like, I think I need to cut my bangs. Like these babies are out of control. So sometimes you can.
Hey, they look at wait. So you're all gusset up. You look great as well.
Uh, Okay, I'm coming to you live right now from the SEC Media Day room. I'm just going to show everybody real quick. So college
Yeah.
football is here, and I am sitting down and talking to all of the coaches and players from SEC teams this year. And so I'm having a blast. I just got done talking to Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. He was hysterical, like really good. But I have to show you one cute picture because I showed up today for media day, and look who I'm twinning with. Can you see?
Oh, nice. The captain. What's up, coach?
So Coach Saban is now my colleague, and we
Oh
came in
yeah.
matching outfits today, which I love that we're twinning. And it's just really cool because he's someone that I have admired for a really long time. I have obsessively studied Nick Saban. I've read everything about him. I've talked to his family in West Virginia, his wife, his mom. Like I have done a lot of study over him through the years because I just think he's one of our most fascinating characters in all of sports. And now he's a colleague. So I actually just talked to him and said, hey, like if we have games at the same site where you're doing game day, can I come and prep with you? Because he's doing lots of film study. Like I want to know how Nick Saban watches film. And so he said yes. So can you imagine if I could learn from the greatest coach ever? Like how cool is that?
We got to put a football team together for you. I think we gotta. I think we know what we need to do. We'll just start our own team. We'll start a college and our own team, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna
Just
we'll
have Coach Saban be our personal coach.
he'll mentor you, and then you'll become the coach, and we'll be off to the races.
So there was a great movie back in the day with Goldie Hawn, and I keep telling you to watch this movie. It's called Wildcats, where Goldie Hawn becomes a coach of this haphazard high school football team, and it's such a cute movie. So maybe me and Coach Saban, we can do like a remake of the Goldie Hawn movie. You can be in it, of course.
I like that. Well, I mean, I have a football movie. I won't say the premise on here for the
You're
whoever
writing a
listens to
football
this.
movie, aren't you? You're currently writing one.
I think it's in third position right now because I have a short and then we're doing a pilot. Um, and then yeah, it's the third one. But I finished the short today. I did an update on the pilot today, the pilot script, and then yeah, now I can move into I have time, so I'll work out and then I'll swing into that.
So you're being very creative and very goal oriented right now. I love that.
Yeah.
I am starting to get anxious for football season because once football season starts, my first game will be the last weekend in August,
Yeah.
and September 1st, 29th. No, wait, August 30th, September 1st. And then it is like I'll look up and it's January. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what is your best and worst memory from college football season? Like it has been a piece of our life for as long as you've been alive. I have
Oh,
worked
best.
every single Saturday of your life. I've worked a college football game. How does that impact you? How has that impacted you growing up?
It got better as I got older because I didn't have to be ferried to various homes every weekend because that was always tough. I'd say that was probably the worst part was like when I was too young to be completely alone, I'd have to go stay at, ran at a family member's house or a family friend's house for the weekend, which is always tough when you're like in those formative years where you're like, I want to go ride bikes with my friend, yeah, and you kind of throw a fit. But then definitely, yeah, as I got older, I guess the best part was just like people just being like, "Hey, is that your mom?" When I was like out doing stuff, I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, it is." That was probably the best part. You had a lot of street cred, or gave me a lot of street cred, so that was awesome.
I literally think you never cared what I did for a living. Like you honestly could have cared less that I was on TV until you got to college. And I remember coming up to visit you. You were in a play, and I came up to watch you in the play. And it was literally the first time you were like, okay, guys, here's Holly Rowe. Like people were excited that your mom was me. And it was the
Yeah,
first time I felt like you were proud of me, maybe.
yeah. I mean, I was. It's tough to be proud of your parent when you're a kid because you don't. A, that's not a feeling that you know. Like I think it's a little bit. I mean, yeah, I think it's. Yeah, it's not necessarily fair because you're a child and you don't understand what it is, and so it's a little bit weird to be like, "Are you proud of what I'm doing?" And it's like, I don't know who I am. I just know that you love me and you're supposed. I think you take care of me. So like it can be that can be tough, but I definitely am proud of you now.
But tell that story because I thought that was a funny story of your baseball buddies in college.
Um, I mean, just told it, they I when I got to school, we ended up having to go early because we were in student government, and some of my buddies were in. Some of the people on student government who I became friends with were also on the baseball team. Shout out Lucas and Kyle and Draney, and Greg and Manny. But we so there was like one night where we were all hanging out at one of their houses and we were watching TV, and it just like randomly came up in conversation. I was like, oh yeah, well that's my mom. I think you were on the TV, and I was like, oh yeah, that's my mom right there, and everybody's like, what? You're serious? And like freaked out, and I think that was because I didn't hang out with a lot of people that watched football, especially, and so it was like one of the first times where I was like, oh yeah, yeah, it's cool. It was cool. It's not a very interesting story. There's not a good beginning, middle, end, but it was
No,
cool.
but the reason I like this story is because like you really never cared ever. And it was the first time I was like, haha, yeah, like I I got maybe street cred with my kid, with my son.
I mean,
His friends
it's
think I'm cool.
it's tough to care when you don't really have an idea of what it is either. And then
Yeah.
like in high school, I had an understanding of what it was, but it was just like, yeah, she leaves every weekend and then she comes back. So it's a different it's perspective. It's
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for football season. I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with it, as you know. And ESPN is getting the rights to the SEC network or to the SEC this year exclusively. So we will have the best game for the SEC week in and week out.
It's gonna get
And
crazy.
it's huge. CBS has had those rights, and we've always gotten like second or third pick. And so I'm just really excited because I do think the SEC is the best football out there. I have worked every conference, no shade to the Big Ten. I did the Big Ten for like 20 years. I just think the SEC line of scrimmage is different than any other place. So I'm excited. I think it's really cool. And I have a very cute picture. So I just did an interview with Steve Sarkisian, the coach for the Texas Longhorns. And I actually have a very cute picture. You'll remember this picture of when you were a baby. I literally don't think you were even a year old yet. You might have been like 6 months old or something. And I took you to the WAC championship game in Vegas. And we have that really cute picture of you and grandpa, and you're at the WAC championship game. Do you remember this picture?
I don't know.
You have no memory of what I'm talking about. Well,
When I see it, it'll be cute though.
the quarterback for that team was Steve Sarkisian, and now he is the
Okay.
head coach for the Texas Longhorns. So you've
Oh,
known him since you were
okay.
born.
Well, I do remember going to the what was that 2004, the Rose Bowl in 2004. That's like one of the most famous games of all time. I remember that very clearly. That was a great game.
I think it was the 2005. Yeah, I think it was Vince Young, USC, and I got to take you and Grandpa and sit in the stands for the Rose Bowl. That was really cool.
That was a fun one.
That was good. Oh, I'm glad you remember that because that's literally the best college football game I've ever worked, and it means a lot to me that you got to be there. So that's great that you remember it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Okay, so did you have any topics? I'm kind of hectic today because I've got all these interviews and stuff going on. I did not come up with my chaos theory topics. What do you got for me?
I didn't write any down, but we'll just go off the rip.
During the course of the week, I'll see stuff or I'll run across quotes and stuff like that, and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to share that with McKylin. I don't want to cry if I say this. It's a privilege to know you. It's a privilege to love you. It's a privilege to be loved by you, and it's a privilege to experience your energy. I started thinking about this because I feel like parents, we are constantly criticizing our kids. Like part of our job is teaching you how to do things, or, oh, you need to worry about this. You got to do this, got to do this. How important is it? And do I do it enough? Do parents do it enough? Positive feedback for your children. Like, I don't know that I say
Wait,
that.
what's your question? Oh, yeah, okay. I was like,
You're like, where are
you
you going
answering for other people? You do a good job of it at certain times. I would say the bulk is the other thing, but then when you do say the nice stuff, it's like great.
Yeah, I think so. I grew up with very critical parents, and I think that I have been a critical parent. I think you know that. It's something I work on.
Well,
Really?
I mean, let's do a fun. So, fun fact for the podcast: I'm doing laser hair removal on my cheeks, not of my own volition. I was fine with this. I would just kind of be like, oh, it's annoying, but like, you shave it. And for my birthday, I am now doing laser hair removal, which means during the summer of 2024, I cannot have any sun on my face. So I have worn a hat and sunscreen and glow on my face every single day since the end of June. So that I would put that in the critical section.
I'm trying not to laugh so hard because
it is out of love. I do understand where it's coming.
In my defense, you are an actor. You are worried about your appearance. And so your mom's just trying to help you with your appearance.
I think we should work on networking, like maybe there's a couple, I think there's steps before. But hey, it's only laser
tell
hair.
The people what your first experience was like getting laser hair removal on your face.
Yes. And then the funniest part is the text that you sent me after I told you about my first time doing it. So I go in, I'm running a little bit late because it's on the east side of New York, and I live in Hell's Kitchen. And if you don't know New York, for some reason to get into the Upper East Side from anywhere kind of west is a big old hassle. So
because of Central Park.
Well, yeah, because of Central Park, there's no trains that really run over there. So it can be like where I am 30 blocks away from the place, a little bit less. I'm about 30 blocks away, and it will take 40 minutes to get there. And so I woke up maybe 10 minutes late, and I was like, oh crap. And so I start running. I get outside. I get a city bike. I city bike up there as fast as I can. And then go in, and they're like, I was like 10 minutes late. And she's like, all right, I got you. Just head on back. So I head on back, and the lady's like, well, usually we want people to come a little early so that they can get their numbing
gel.
And
so they put this numbing gel on your skin so that it doesn't hurt so bad.
Exactly. And I was like, it can't be that bad. I'm a little late. Like, let's just get this over with. I want to get to the rest of my day. And so she's like, okay. So the first couple spots are fine. And then she got to like the ridge of my face right here, kind of like where the majority of the hair is.
And it's like these little wands that have lights on them, and it's like
yeah. So you feel like it's pressure, and then it's like click, 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 and so that just kept happening. And she did it 3 or 4 times, and it didn't hurt. And then she did that one, and I was like, oh. And she's like, are you okay? And I was like, oh, I'm trying to. And then click, click, and it just went. And then I found out that there's different parts of your face that hurt very bad. And it's a surprise because she's doing it by hand. So it's not like, when you get into a situation with pain where you just like, all right, I just anticipate the pain, be ready for it, be loose. Ooh, like it would be at different times, different levels of pain. Some would be blinding, some would be fine. But I get it done. I get this procedure done because I'm a good son. It's for me. It is to support me in my dreams. So do not complain. You don't complain about gifts. This is a gift. And I walk out and I'm like, hey, I did it. It was good. I got to do it again next month. And immediately you're like, all right, next step, Invisalign. So in the theme of
our family, we do have a little gap in the front of our teeth. I have it too. You have it too. It's genetic. You got to get the gap fixed.
I think maybe creating healthy connections and getting into movies is an important step.
I know. Okay. Okay. So anyway, back to our original topic.
I appreciate it.
Back to the original topic. I read something once that for every criticism you give kids, you have to give them 10 positive things. And this was more in the context of school teachers. Like if a school teacher corrects you in a situation, then you've got to give kids 10 positive cues, because kids will focus on the negative, and it can be overwhelming and they can get depressed or, overwhelmed. And so that was a little goal I set for myself this week after seeing that great post of more loving communication. As I do think I tell you I love you a lot. I do think you feel very loved, but positive reinforcement. Hey, you're doing a great job on X. Oh, I loved it when you did Y. Like, I do think that is something parents get caught up in, is corrective behavior and not constructive behavior.
I mean, you do a good job with it. So I think we're weirdos. We're a bunch of freaking weirdos, but the two of us especially. So like the way we do stuff is not going to be normal. So I think that in the vein of being weirdos, or we're normal. I don't know. Weird is that's a whole tangent. You just saw me go off into another place. Whatever. But I think in the level that we express emotion in our lives and how life has gone, I think it is an equal level of criticism and love. I think it should probably be maybe a hair more love.
Yeah, I was gonna say it should be more love than criticism for sure.
But also I can show more love and appreciation for stuff. I think we got into a fight, we talked about it on the podcast, where like sometimes you'll see something as a gift and I'll see it as a responsibility or like a criticism, and vice versa. You know what I mean? And so I think that's definitely something that a lot of parents, you think you're doing the best for your kid, and sometimes they don't want it. Or sometimes you don't think you're doing anything for your kid, like you're not bothering them at all, and they're like, come on, help. So it's honestly, kids and parents, it's a freaking shit show, isn't it?
But that's why we're doing the podcast, honestly, is I do think it's good to talk stuff through. I like hearing how other parents do things and seeing how other parents do things, because I'm still trying to figure it out. Everybody's still trying to figure it out. And so I like that kind of feedback. So anyway, that was my one little thought I wanted to share with you this week. What do you got for me?
So one of mine was boundaries. So I was thinking about this, perfect with the podcast today, is so we had to do some rejigging, and I had planned around 2:30. All right. And then you're busy.
Didn't happen. I'm hectic.
But we had planned the podcast before, and we said 2:30 is going to be our set time. So I guess in the sense of boundaries, it's sometimes I think parents expect you to jump when they say jump. You know what I mean? And not
sometimes.
All the time.
Not sometimes. I do think that is very valid, honey. Is like, one thing I really appreciate about you is if I call you and you don't answer the phone, you will always immediately text me and say, hey mom, I'm in a movie, I'll call you back. Or hey mom, I'm doing this, I'll call you back. And I love that. That is a little subtle thing, because it's more of a worry thing. Like, oh, he's not answering. Is he okay? I haven't heard, whatever. So I really appreciate you doing that. But I do think parents expect kids to, I don't want to say jump when we say jump, because that's not right, but be accessible and respond.
Yeah. And it's no, like, you have work, so there was no like ill will, but it is like that funny thing of like I had horrible diarrhea one time when we had to do the podcast, and it was an interrogation as to why I
No,
couldn't just do the podcast in 15 minutes.
because I couldn't understand how bad you could, how sick you could be that you can't sit there and talk.
Well, yeah, you don't want to be like sitting there talking because everybody has diarrhea. It's a tough thing to just be like, all right, you know what I want to do now? Possibly be heard by thousands. You know what I mean? You barely even want to
Fair
see
enough.
somebody.
I know, but I
Like,
didn't believe you. I was like, what? Why can't you do?
yeah. And I literally had just sat down from the toilet and I was like tired and sweaty. And you're just like, what's going on? What's really going on? Whereas,
So these are the boundaries that you feel like parents should have.
yeah, you
I hear
said,
you.
you were like, I'm a little busy today. Can we move it to now at like 1 p.m.? And I
Right
was
now.
not at home. I,
Right now.
I was over at Doc's house and we were like having coffee and like, planning our week or whatever. And I was just like, no, yeah, I'm busy. You know what I mean? Not any, and this is
This is
not
all good
criticism.
feedback. This is all
This
good
is
feedback.
I want it to not be noticed. This is not criticism. This is more of just in the conversation of
Feedback.
boundaries. We handled that. I think we handled it pretty well. We can
Yeah.
we can work on it a little better. But it's the communication.
Yeah, it's funny because I do see families now. So I was in the airport the other day, and I'm not saying this to be a jerk or anything, but there's a mom in the airport with let's say her son's like 10 or 12. And sometimes you hear how other kids talk to their parents, or the lack of boundaries that parents have for their kids. And you're just like, wow, I would never allow that, or I would never have my kid talk to me that way. So I think that it is good both sides. Is I do think parents have to have boundaries for their kids of like, this is not how you'll talk
You
to me.
don't talk to me that
Disrespectful. Way. Yeah. And I think that those boundaries are good to set for both sides of families and both parents and kids.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think I need to. I mean, honestly, I've that's been something I've been trying to work on in relationships and just with people in general this past year. I think I had a tendency to be like a boundary pusher. I like to, I think as a kid, I kind of found that like pushing buttons and being a certain way was fine. And now I recently, my friend told me, and she meant it in the nicest way possible. She's like, "Oh, you can be an ass," and I was like, "And you've told me that," and I was like, "Fair enough." You know what? Like because I think that I'm being like I'm pushing your buttons and it's playful, and I'm like, oh, people have these invisible boundaries, which are much more prevalent nowadays. Whatever. It's not like it used to be. You can't tease people like you used to. I'm kidding, but it's like fun. It's like realizing that piece of me that's just like, oh, it's okay to like also have a little bit of like a boundary with me,
right. So I used to tease you when you were a kid because you were obsessed with Jurassic Park, and the first Jurassic Park movie might be the best movie ever made. We still obsess about it. We will do Jurassic Park marathons constantly.
Hell
But
yeah.
there's a scene in Jurassic Park where the dinosaur keeper, I forget his name, but he's talking about the raptors, and they're showing this cow being lowered into the raptor cage, and it's this whole scene about the raptors enclosure. And he basically says, the raptors will test the fence to see the weaknesses. And so you get this visual of the raptor claw tapping the fence to see where the weaknesses are. And then his line, and, his big bright blue eyes, and this actor is very good, piercing. And he's like, and they remember where the weaknesses in the fence are. And I was like,
and I think the real thing is they never attack the same place twice.
Yes.
And
that's what I think kids do to parents. Yeah. Oh, say it again. I interrupted you. Say the whole part again.
I interrupted you. But he's like, they've been attacking the fences, testing for weaknesses. And they're like, oh, really? And he's like, the interesting thing is they never attack the same place twice. And he's like, oh, really? What do you mean? And he's like, well, they remember.
So like the raptors were so smart, but I think that's what children do, is they're constantly pushing the boundaries of their parents and testing and testing and testing of like, where can I get you? Where can I get the reaction? And so I think that's definitely, just a good way to have boundaries. So I can be like, nope, you can't push my buttons right now. Like
Set up.
I'm done.
But I do that, and I've realized that I've been working on it as like I think because of there's this thing called adultification that happens to a lot of like single parents, only children, where like you kind of as a young you kind of go through adulthood or not adulthood, but you're kind of pushed into adulthood to take care of yourself or be like a counterpart.
I do think adultification is an important topic though, because I definitely think I did that too. I remember someone telling me you were so well behaved as a kid. And I was like, yeah, because he's been around adults his whole life. I've had to take him to work. I've had to take him around adults. He's had to grow up quickly. And so I do think that's something you did.
Yeah. And I think one thing that happens from that is I definitely still have that the boundary thing. And everybody has this in a way, but I still have the childish boundary testing now as an adult because my adulting and childing happened at the same time. So like, you have these remnants of like your kid in you. Yeah.
Okay.
And so so I feel like I push a little boundaries every now and again because of that, which I thought was interesting because I think we go through that together as other instruments. But I still push your boundaries quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. But it's good because I think we can communicate it well. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry it's a short version this week, honey. Did you have one more thing for me? I literally have
no. You got it. No, you got to go. Okay. We got it.
Speaking of boundaries. Yeah. Speaking of boundaries, we've got SEC coaches to be talking to, so we got to get out of here.
Yeah. Who do we get? Anybody famous?
Billy Napier. Billy Napier from Florida is coming in next. Hey. We've had the new coach. Did you know there's a new coach at Alabama, McKylin DeBoer?
I did.
So not. Nick Saban retired. Retired, right? So McKylin DeBoer, the coach at Alabama, and I think I talked to you about him last year because I did a lot of Washington games last year. With Coach DeBoer, and I absolutely fell in love with that Washington team with Michael Penix. I did a lot of their games last year, including up to the national championship, and that was just a special team. So anyway, I love Coach DeBoer. I'm a huge fan. Alabama is maybe the hardest job in America because of the expectations. He's following a legend, the expectations of the fans. But so I'm very secretly, or not so secretly, rooting for him to succeed because he is the nicest, one of the nicest coaches I've ever been around in my life. And I want him to succeed at Alabama. Let me tell you one quick story about him before we get out of here. So Coach DeBoer last year, his running back has gone like 630 reps without fumbling the football, and he fumbles the football in this crucial game against Oregon in the final seconds of the game. And the kid comes running across the sideline. It is a crucial rivalry game. And instead of yelling at the kid, first thing McKylin DeBoer says to his running back, "Are you okay?" And I'll just never forget that because I'm like, coach sometimes will yell or be like, "Hey man, you gotta focus here," or do a correction or whatever. And McKylin DeBoer instead was, "Are you okay?" and was worried about the kid. So that is why I am rooting for him to succeed at Alabama. And I got off on a tangent, but that's because we're here at SEC Media Day. And
this is a special SEC Media Day episode.
Yes. Getting ready for the season. Very excited.
Let me see if I got any. I'll exit us on a joke. What jokes do I have? Do I have anything funny? Do you think that Nick Saban is now coaching his family as hard as he was coaching Alabama? Do you think they're the number one family in everything that they do? Do you think his wife is just like, "Oh God, he's here all the time"?
I think Miss Terry is probably very happy that he's working for ESPN and can get out of that.
It's like, we have the perfect dishwashing routine. What do we do?
All right. And on that note, my darling, I love you. Thank you so much for calling your mom. Bye.
Bye.